Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Ad America TV event with me, Jasmine. I hope you all are doing well. So for those of you joining us for the first time, Ad America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a digital platform so you can still enjoy all of our events at the comfort of your own home. So for tonight, we will be discussing writing a statement of purpose for U.S. grad school applications with Education USA Ad America. But before we begin, I would like to share with you that Ad America is having a giveaway as part of our 10th anniversary celebration and also celebrating diversity between the U.S. and Indonesia. We're inviting you guys to participate so you don't miss out on a chance to receive an iPad Pro. Now, how can you guys do that? Stay tuned until the end of the program because that's when I'll be sharing with you how to do so. And also, I would like to tell you, for those of you who don't want to miss out on updates from us about our awesome events, you guys can join us as a member. So it's really easy.
As our member and get weekly updates from us via email. We won't spam you, we promise, only once a week. So you can click register, fill in your name and email, and you'll get updates from us.
So there you go. For those of you who don't want to miss out, you guys can subscribe to us and we won't spam you, we promise, just once a week. And up next, I would like to share with you that Ad America is also on social media. I'm sure you guys are. So for those of you who would like to see Ad America's updates on your screen, on your stream, or scrolling on your Instagram, you guys want to see us, don't forget to follow us on our page at AT America on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube at AT America with 2 A's at the end. All right, and as usual at all of Ad America's events, I would like to share with you our social media quiz question for this evening. So the question is, true or false, a statement of purpose should contain your motivation and capabilities and also your connection to your chosen field of study. So is that fact true or false? You can participate in our social media quiz by commenting on our Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram. And for those of you who got the answer correctly, you will get a live shout out from us at the end of the program. All right, so let's just start tonight's event. I would like to invite our beautiful speaker for this evening, one of our Education USA advisors here at Ad America, Ms. Pina Alatas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ad America TV. I'm so very excited. Thank you guys so much for joining in. My name is Tina. I'm one of the advisors for Education USA based in Ad America, and I'm very excited because I am in Ad America. I'm very excited about this event tonight. Again, thank you guys. I would like to say hello to everyone who is watching the session from so many different platforms. Because of course, we are not only here in Zoom, but we are basically on all of the platforms that you can think of. So we are currently live on Facebook, we are live on Twitter, live on YouTube, of course. We are also live on Instagram. And of course, if you want to join us here, join the crowd. We are currently here in Zoom. It's going to be very interactive because during my session, I don't want to call it presentation. I'm going to tell you why, but I'm going to have my colleague Santika basically interact with you guys in the chat feature here in Zoom. So if you want to join the crowd, feel free to join here. I'm looking at some of the participants here and it seems like, more and more people are coming in. So I don't know if this is your first time or not, but if this is your first time, I would like to say again, welcome. I'm going to talk a little bit real quick about Education USA. Basically, we are part of the U.S. State Department Network, or here in Indonesia, we call it Kementerian Luar Negerinya Amerika Serikat. We have a lot of international advising center all over the world, basically. And of course, we have also in Indonesia, 8 centers with a total of 10 advisors. And you are currently with Education USA Ad America, located in Pacific Place. I'm going to share with you just very briefly about Education USA at America, in Ad America. So there are, okay, give me 1 second here. Okay, I hope you can see this. There are 2 advisors. Again, my name is Vina. I have my colleague Santika somewhere in Zoom. I'm going to call her up at the end of my session tonight. So since the pandemic, we are so happy to let you guys know that we are available on advising sessions every single day, just like before the pandemic. So we are available every single day, 7 days a week from 1 until 9 p.m. We have a one-on-one advising session via Zoom. So I leave you here the Zoom ID, and then I'm going to ask Santika to help me copy paste the link in Zoom, so that you can save it. And then the next time you want to jump into Zoom, you can basically just click that link. Okay. You don't have to make an appointment. So the advising system is first come, first served. That being said, it's actually, I'm going to explain to you more about it during the session tonight, but since it's first come, first serve, technically when there are, a lot of advising session going on, then you need to wait in line. But so yeah, like June is the month of kind of like quiet. So I would like highly recommend you to start kind of like introduce yourself, go into Zoom, introduce yourself to either myself or to Santika, because when we go to July onward, it's going to be crazily busy. So, but yeah, now you know that you don't have to make an appointment technically, just as long as the Zoom room is available, then you can definitely see one of us. Okay. So you can also email us first if you don't feel like you're just jumping into Zoom. This is our email center, jakarta.atmerica.educationusa.org. Feel free to introduce yourself if you feel like doing so before you jump into Zoom. Okay. Next week, June 22nd, basically this month is kind of like the month of like when I cover a lot of topics on graduate studies. So I would love to invite you to this event. It's on Tuesday evening. Applying to US grad schools, what and when to prepare. I think some of you, if not all of you, who are watching this session right now, wants to continue your master's degree in the US or PhD, hopefully. So let's have a discussion about this in terms of like the timeline and what should you prepare really when you want to study in the US. Okay. And then the day after, another interesting topic, letters of recommendations for US university application, the do's and don'ts. This is like the topic that we love so much. Last week we had a session on resume or CV. I hope you got a chance to watch that. And then this week, of course, we have the session on essay. Next week, as you can see, we have these two. And then July comes, and then we have another interesting events as well, of course. You can definitely see our upcoming events through our website at atamerica.or.id/educationusa and scroll all the way down. In fact, you can already register for the two sessions that I just told you, and then just give it some time for us to prepare the information for the August event. Okay. So tonight, I'm just gonna like dive right into it. We're going to talk about writing a statement of purpose for U.S. grad school applications. Let me know if some of you who are still in high school, although I am going to focus on graduate essays for master's degree or PhD, but I don't really see why don't you can actually take a lot of information from this session tonight. But just let us know if some of you are still in high school so that we can kind of like a better idea that there are some high school students watching the session. But tonight I'm going to talk about basically a statement of purpose and then why it is really important, to the point I have this session every single month. Okay. I'm going to stop share this. If this is not your first time, you would probably like, wait, hold on. I thought you're going to, show the PowerPoint slide. Surprise. This is my second time trying to have this session without a PowerPoint slide. I would love to hear from you guys, any feedback, if you guys like this kind of style of me presenting. So all these times, basically, I have the presentation slides from the beginning until the end. But this time I want to give a try where basically you can just hear me talking. But then at the same time, I'm expecting you to kind of like jot down some of my tips, because that's basically what I'm going to give you for the next 1 hour. So that's kind of like, I'm going to time myself so that we have some time to kind of like do the Q&A. Okay. So let's dive right into it. Okay. What is a statement of purpose? Why is it called an SOP? What is it called a statement of purpose? Is it an essay that we normally know what an essay is supposed to look like? And what is an essay that we normally think what an essay is supposed to look like? Let's talk a little bit about that before we kind of like dive into talking about like, what is this statement of purpose? Why is it different? Why do I keep having the session every single month, right? So when we think of an essay, just like an essay in general, right? Like, that you want to write an essay as part of the application process. When we think of that, basically, we are thinking about an essay where you basically write about yourself, right? If you agree with me, let me know in the chat. Say yes or what have you. I want to interact with you basically here. So a lot of us think about autobiography. The essay usually centric on being a narrative, or an essay where you kind of like writing a letter to obviously to an admission to the admissions committee. Basically, we show ourselves off, right? I finished college here and then I did an intern there. I won this award. I won that award. I won this competition. I won that competition. I won this, award competition, what have you. Basically, when we think about essay in general, it's an essay where everything is about me, 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 me. Because when we think about an essay, we think about I want to show myself off, right? So that they can see me, right? Um, Surprise, surprise. If this is your first time joining the session, basically, I want to tell you guys that when it comes to an essay for you to apply to US universities, it's quite the opposite. I'm sorry, I have to break this news. And the reasons why we have this session every single month is because I really hate when I have to read this kind of draft and then I have to give a big X because I have to be honest and I am an honest person. I don't want to kind of like, give you like false hope, you giving me your draft and then I say, oh no, this is good while it's actually not ready yet for us to submit it to the US universities. And I hate doing that. And it happens a lot. And that's why I was thinking, a couple of years back, you know what, I have to do something about this. And here I am. Giving the session every single month. So now we are not writing an essay that we normally think about what an essay should look like because now you can actually think about like when it comes to US universities, it's just completely different. It's similar to like when we had a resume session last week. Why do we have that session every single month where you can actually just like Google it and then look for like, the regular resume that we think what the resume should look like, but then and then you understand when joining the session that, oh, okay, so there is some kind of like a different here and there. So it's pretty similar to when it comes to essay, right? So you will also going to be familiar when you decide to come see me as, the advisor to look at your essay. I will say something like, okay, we're going to have a major revision, or sometimes I will say, oh, we're going to have like a minor revision. When I say major revision, it means that it's kind of like a nicer way for me to say this is like a big X. It means that I'm expecting you to actually rewrite the whole thing. And then the next time you're coming back to Zoom, I am expecting that I'm going to read something new and the correct version of what statement of purpose should look like, and which we're going to discuss tonight. All right. So I'm just going to also want to give you a heads up that it is not going to be easy, guys, but this is what we are here for. This is what Santika and I are here for. We are guiding you. But again, I'm telling you, this is not going to be easy. It's going to be very hard, but it's so going to be worth it. Okay. And so if up to the point you're still thinking that writing an essay is actually easy, in fact, there are a lot of us putting an essay as kind of like the last step of the application process, I want you to kind of like change that mindset. Basically, essay is supposed to be kind of like the first thing even when you want to apply for US universities. People think that writing an essay is that easy, like how I think, like when I said before, just basically autobiography and what have you, to the point where a lot of us basically leave the most important thing from what the universities are actually asking for in statement of purpose. That is, are you ready to hear this? What do you want out of this program? That's basically it. That's what basically what they want to hear, what they want to read in the statement of purpose. And in fact, we can actually just end this session tonight by me saying that. But no, of course, I want to kind of like, go deep down, going through every single paragraph and what have you, the technical aspects of the essay. But yeah, the statement of purpose, the bigger, if I can explain, if someone asks me, can you, say it, like in one sentence, what a statement of purpose actually is, basically the university is asking, what do you want out of this program? And they really do want to know that, right? They don't want to just simply know about yourself. In fact, they can actually get that from like different other documents. Okay. And yeah, I mean, a lot of us basically focus too long on what we have done in the past. And now let me ask you this. If you are here in Zoom or wherever you guys are watching this from, I want to ask you this, and I'm going to give you like a couple of seconds or maybe a minute or two to answer this. like when I explain to you what an essay in general looks like, it's an autobiography. Basically, a lot of us put in information about like I graduated here, I worked here, I did an intern here, I won this award, and I won that competition and all that. Where do you think the admissions committee can actually get that information from, apart from the essay? I'm gonna give you a minute or two, or maybe a minute, to actually answer that. Okay, we got Tian Mai, we got Sharon, basically say CV here. Is there anybody else wants to say something else? We're gonna give some time, but you know what? Exactly right. You can actually get all this information in your resume or in your CV, right? And if you think that what an essay or statement of purpose should look like, then what am I doing here? Why Education USA America is so very much well known for its essay review session, right? Because if you think about it, if that's like what is in the essay, what do you want me to change? What do you want Santika to change in that essay? Clearly, we're not checking the grammar, which I'm just gonna tell you right now. When you actually decide to senior Santika, we are not checking your grammar. We are working on the structure, right? So now you know that. Okay, now I get it. So we're not going to write anything about like autobiography, because that's exactly what kind of things that you want me to change, because I can't change anything. If you graduated from like one university, I can't change that, right? If you did this competition, you want that award, I can't change that, right? So basically what I'm trying to say you, this is kind of like the first part of this session, basically to kind of like make you understand better what this statement of purpose is. And basically I want to kind of like share with all of you guys that we do not want to underestimate this essay, because the university in the US, they really do want to know who you are, but they can get all the your academic performance or your professional experience in the past from other documents. And then essay is basically where you are able to basically basically answer their question. That is, what do you want to take out of this program, right? um, the way I look at it, why it is so different, basically, probably the US is the only country that has this kind of like essay style, is because other countries outside the US, the way I look at it, is that they are very centric on academic. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It is just the way it is, right? They do really care about your academic performance, to the point they don't really care about what you want to do. What are you trying to get out of this program? So that's why the essay is very common, where you just basically talk about me, 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 me. That's why it's very easy to write an essay for other countries as well, right? But then in the US, the keyword here is holistic, right? Holistic means that they actually going to take a look at every single document that they are asking, and all of the documents that they are asking is really, really important. They do not want to see any duplicate information in every document that they ask, right? So they ask for a transcript for a reason, because they want to take a look at your academic performance. They ask for a letter of recommendation also for a reason. They want to hear from someone else, your senior, employer, and what have you, about you. They are asking for a resume or CV also for a reason, because they also want to know like what have you been doing the past whatever years, right? And then they are also asking for an essay for a reason. They want to kind of like hear from your point of view what it is that you want to do. Why are you coming to our campus? Okay. They don't want to basically, and it's very common also that I see a lot of people kind of like, want to kind of like show off their GPA, and then they say, yeah, I want to show off my GPA. I work hard so much like with this GPA, and I want to put it in the essay. They don't want to see that in the essay, obviously, because they can definitely take a look at in the transcript, right? So that being said, it's actually called a statement of purpose for a reason, just like what it's called. It's a statement of purpose. It's about you making a statement of your purpose. Okay, so I hope you kind of like get like a better idea of like why it is so different. And again, we don't want you to underestimate this as this particular document. We see actually a lot of people come to see us, and then they say, I'm done with everything. I'm done with my GRE. I'm done with my resume and what have you. I have my deadline in the next 2 weeks. Now I'm coming to you so that I can work on the essay. only for 2 weeks. We do not want to do that. Seriously, guys. Okay. And also, and basically, essay is the one preparation you do not want to procrastinate on. I know that procrastinating can feel really good. And I admit that I also sometimes procrastinate. But trust me, guys, this is the only document, at least for you applying to US universities, that you do not want to procrastinate on. Okay. And plus, remember when I had said to you that this is not going to be easy, especially Santika is really nice, by the way. I hope I'm also like a nice person, but when it comes to essay, I'm very serious about it because I want you to actually end up with like a really good essay. But without my advisees actually say it in front of my face, I can definitely tell that sometimes they need to get off from me for a while because sometimes I just kind of like I'm not satisfied with what I'm reading to the point where they're just kind of like very frustrated. And so when you actually start early, when you actually start, coming to see me like right now for a deadline that is not until like January next year or February or March, it will give you some time to kind of like get a break from an essay. Because from here on, guys, especially for this essay, for this session tonight, this is not going to be easy. Okay. But I'm telling you, this is going to be very, very worth it. Okay. Let's see. I have like my cheat sheet here that I would like to share with you guys. And yeah, and then another thing when you think about like, okay, so this is your first time with Education USA, probably, and you think, yeah, maybe after this I'm gonna see Fina and Santika. If this is your first time being exposed to Education USA, maybe for some other centers it's different. But at least with Education USA America, Santika and I, we are kind of like, we love to kind of like get to know new people and everything. So when you go to see us, it's not just kind of like a business like. It's not like you come into Zoom and then here's my essay and then I review your essay and then bye. See you later. It's not like that. Like when you come to see me, I would like to kind of like get to know you first. What is it? What's your story? Right. And then the reasons why I'm doing that is because that is also, you can also kind of like familiarize yourself with how the US admission committees also work. They are very like personal. They're doing like a very somewhat personal approach. I'm not saying like all programs, especially like programs that are big like MBA or public policy, but oftentimes they have like a really kind of like small or medium size of like team where they really do want to know you. And then think of like when you see me or Santika, kind of like you also see an admission committee where I really do want to kind of like get to know you better. And then at the same time, we can also brainstorm together because this essay is so complex, I would say, to the point where a lot of us kind of like confused, like what is it exactly what they are asking? Okay. And I pay attention to every sentence that you write again. So I'm not here to just kind of like business like that, I'm reading it and then, you know what, I'm tired or whatever you, and then, okay, yeah, bye, I'll see you later. So I really do pay attention to every sentence. And just in case you're kind of like wondered, is there like any fee for doing this? It seems like, you're doing things that, kind of like, you have to pay. Surprise, it's actually free of charge. So really, really use this service. We are here to help you, basically. Okay. Let's see. And yeah, basically, I'm saying like earlier that statement of purpose, it becomes actually quite popular now that more and more people kind of like heard about Education Westside America, essay, Education Westside America, essay, Education Westside America, right? And in fact, that's kind of like, an SOP review is kind of like something that I've been focusing for quite some times now. The way I look at it is because that would be the only document that I feel that Santika or I, as an advisor, can actually really help you with, right? I mean, yeah, we can take a look at your resume as well, but I mean, resume and CV is pretty much like straightforward. But then other than that, I mean, like GRE and GMAT, we can give you the information about like, the scores and what have you, like tips and that. But then GRE and GMAT or TOEFL or IELTS, that's something, which by the way, that's something that I'm going to talk about like next week. That's basically, at the end of the day, in order for you to get like a certain score, you are the only one who can actually prepare yourself, right? But essay, the way I look at it, is the only document where we can actually work together. And I happen to love reading essays, guys. Like seriously, like love reading essays. And I love presenting this like right now. So keep it coming, guys. Seriously, like I love doing this. So now probably at this point again, like this is your first time. Why I keep saying that is because I found it really interesting because apparently there are some people who have been attending this essay session for quite some time, and I find it fascinating. But if this is your first time, I know probably you're kind of like, wait, why do you make it like if this is like a really hard thing to do? Well, the question now is it hard? Understanding the structure in the beginning, yeah, especially like when to the point where you actually read the prompts, and a lot of people almost to the point where they just disregard the prompt and then they just write whatever it is what an essay would should look like in general, like autobiography and what have you. And then I would ask, do you realize that you don't actually answer the question? And so people really find it kind of like confusing in a way. So that's why again that's why we are here. But basically once you understand, and I really hope that the key takeaways, I hope there are some key takeaways that you can get from the session tonight. Once you understand the whole concept, and then you basically prepare the outline, prepare the paragraphs, and then on top of that, you also have good writing skills. And then also on top of that, we brainstorm together when we do one-on-one session together. It will be very easy. Okay. So what usually happen on the first session? I'm hoping that basically I'm hoping that you guys are watching the session and then you get kind of like a better idea of what segmental purpose should look like. So that basically I'm trying to save your time so that when you come see me or Santika, you don't have that draft where you start with my name is, I graduated here, I did an intern here and there. Instead, you are having like a structure that what I'm looking for, and I call it kind of like my recipe over the years. I've been working on this basically since the first time I joined EducationUSA here in America because I found it really fascinating when it comes to essay, starting to realize that it's actually so much different than just, like a regular essay. So what usually happens on the first session is feel free to kind of like bring your draft, and doesn't have to be perfect. Like seriously, guys, it doesn't have to be perfect. All I want to know is kind of like, first, I want to check on your writing skills because that is really, really important. But at the same time, I don't check your grammar. I'm not an English native speaker. I don't feel comfortable in doing that. In fact, I have like a lot of grammatical errors. But I'm helping you with the structure. But I want to also see your writing skills first, basically your English, kind of like, yeah, your writing skills. And then I want to check kind of like where you are in this kind of like recipe that I have. Is it somewhat close or is it far away from close? If it's far away, that's fine too. That's what I'm here for, right? Basically, yeah, that's that. And then from there on, we going to build the essay together, brainstorm it together. I have some tips here, which I put it kind of like somewhere in my note. But before I forgot, maybe you also want to kind of like put a mental note that this is like a really great tips, by the way. When we have a session together, record the session, not via Zoom, but have your phone ready and then just record the whole thing. Because oftentimes, like seriously, you have no idea how many times I got this with my advisees where we brainstorm it together. I ask them questions. I ask you questions. They answer it beautifully. And then with your draft in front of me, and then and that's after I read your draft, right? And then after they're done answering my questions, I ask them, how come I didn't see that in your draft? And then that's like what people oftentimes kind of like mind blown in a way. They said, I didn't know. I didn't know why it's not in the draft. And then I said, do you remember what you just said? And then they said, no. And then we have a problem. And so record the session because I will ask you questions where you just don't realize that it is actually a really good material for the essay. Okay. And then another tip is write as many words as possible. By now, I'm assuming that you kind of at some point look at the prompt of the essay, and or probably you already know the words limit. A lot of universities in the US ask you for like crazy few numbers. We're talking about 500. That's like actually really, really like very, very few. 750 is all right. 1,000 is kind of like like this, I love it. 1500 is even better. But just in case you got universities where they just ask you to write like 500 words, sometimes people kind of like it's limit their ideas when you are focusing so much on the 500 words. That being the case, I would say just write as many words as possible. It's easier for me to kind of like just cut things down, and I'm going to tell you that yes, we're going to cut things down like a lot, especially if the university asks for 500. But it's much better that way instead of you just giving me like very few information. Okay, and so basically that's why attending the session would be really really helpful, so that by the time we get to have when we get to the one-on-one session, which I'm going to, what guys, I'm going to remember all of the names of you guys here in Zoom, and I'm actually really do look forward to actually like have you see me or see Santika. Okay. Whoops, what is going on here? Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I can't really say my. All right. Okay, so let's see, what do I have here? Okay, so uh, another heads up that I want to tell you guys is that there is no guarantee that when you go see me or see Santika that you're going to get accepted like 100%. But what I hope that it helps for you to kind of like okay, yeah, I think I would like to give Education USA at America a try when it comes to essay, is that I would say that the success rate is quite high when people kind of like consult their essay with us. And again, I see this again, like I call it kind of like my recipe, because this is the things that I'm still learning until today. When it comes to essay, this is not like the final recipe. I think I'm still going to learn as long as I'm still with Education USA, right? But I definitely like start seeing some kind of like the connection or kind of like the success rate when it comes to like writing an essay at this way, or can I call it my way or my recipe, and the students getting accepted. But then of course, I mean, I have like few number of advisees where at the end they still don't get accepted. But then I don't want to take, like, I don't want to say that, oh, the essays is the only one that makes this people get accepted. And again, remember that it has to be holistic, right? It's just not the essay, although essays plays a huge role. Okay. um uh let's see. Yeah, I talked to you guys about, like, we don't check on grammatical errors. We just only check on structure, record the session. Samples. But probably like at this point, you kind of like, ooh, the success rate is quite high. So Fina, can you actually share with us the samples of your past advices? Do we have that essays? Of course. Um, are there some of my advisees who kind of like give their consent to actually share it with some of our advisees? Yes. But do I want to do that? The answer is no. And I have a reason for that, because I did that actually at the beginning, a few years ago, where I basically share it with some of my advisees. But then I started to realize that it actually gives people a lot of pressures when I shared with them, like, okay, so this is the essay from one of my advisees that I got accepted to university of whatever, and that's like a really highly selective university. And then you're going to look at that essay as something like, oh my God, if this kind of essays get the students accepted to this universities that I want to, that means I have to write an essay like that. And then guess what happens after that? My advisees actually write kind of like something similar to the essays that I showed them. And we don't want that. I don't want that. I want you to actually end up with an essay that no other people can actually write. Okay, so now let's get into kind of like technical, right? From here on, I'm pretty much done with the kind of like the general idea of central purpose. Now I am ready to talk about the essay itself. Probably there will be some kind of like things that you want to kind of like jot down, write down, or what have you, right? The first question is, who's reading this essay? This is actually really important. A lot of people actually not aware of who is actually reading this essay. Who's going to read the essay is basically the admissions committee of that particular department that you want to go to. So let's say you want to go to study MBA, or you want to go study like engineering, right? That particular department, people from the engineering or people from the business schools, they are going to be the one who's reading your essay. That being said, we want to give an information that is new for them. What is new for them? Well, when we talk about Indonesia, for example, or what is actually really going on in Indonesia, that's something that I'm going to touch upon in a second. But at the same time, we don't want to give them information that they already know, because at the same time, they are also the expert. So we don't want to give them a statement, a sentence or two, where you kind of like lecturing them. Maybe you're not trying to lecture them, but you're giving information that, and oftentimes, like I would catch this, right? Even though I'm not an engineer person, or I'm not like a business person or what have you, but sometimes there will be some kind of like questions that I found it kind of like general, and I'm going to ask you, do you think people who are the expert in this field know about this particular statement? And then oftentimes my advisor will say yes, and then I will tell them cross it out. We don't want that. Okay. Um, and surprisingly, if you don't know already, when they actually read the essays, they are not actually going to read the whole thing. I don't know if it's kind of like surprising to you, because when the first time I heard this, it is actually quite surprising to me. They are not going to read the whole thing, because think about like how many essays that they have to read. We're talking about like hundreds. And trust me, a lot of the applicants are probably going to write pretty much like when I just start the event, when they start with, hey, my name is blah, blah, I graduated here and there. Do you think they are going to keep reading that same information from the beginning until the end? Of course not. So I would make an assumption, I would make really like a strong guess that whenever they find an essay like that, they're probably going to skip it. And then they're probably just going to kind of like take a look at your other document. Now, the reasons why I said from the beginning that this is not going to be very easy is because, and also the reasons why I'm not going giving you any sample, is because I want you to actually create an essay that no other people can write, with the purpose so that the admissions committee can actually read the whole thing. And that's why I keep saying that writing this essay will be very hard, but then it's going to be worth it. Because another thing is also because we don't want to give a chance to the reader to actually question whether or not they should have you. I want you to have an essay where when they are done reading it, which by the way, making them reading the whole thing is already hard to begin with. When they're done reading your essay, they will be like, this is the person that we want in this program. That's basically it. That's basically the whole thing about this essay, guys. So do you have it in you? If your answer is yes, bring it on. See me and see Santika. If you feel like, I don't know, maybe I don't have it in me, then you don't have to see me or Santika. In fact, if you end up with an essay with my name is whatever, there might still be a chance of you get accepted, but that's just not how I would do things when it comes to essay. Okay. So that being said, introduction paragraph becomes really important, because if we don't have like a strong introduction paragraph, trust me, they are not going to read the rest of the essay. And so we don't want that. That's what makes the introduction paragraph really, really, really important. And that's what I'm going to talk about right now. I'm going to kind of talk about this sometime for probably like 10 minutes, and then it's going to be very fast on the body and conclusion paragraph, because things will make sense when you understand better what is supposed to be in the introduction paragraph. Okay, so when it comes to writing an essay, this is probably something that you also want to kind of like write down. Very pay attention. Like I'm very much pay attention a lot on the how many paragraphs that you have. Oftentimes, a lot of people give me like a lot of short paragraphs. So then, when I first time look at your draft, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm looking at just like skim through on like how many paragraphs that you have, how many pages, and what have you. And if I see a lot of short paragraphs and then you end up with, I don't know, like maybe 20 paragraphs, it is going to be a major revision. That's not how my recipe works when it comes to essay. So at the end, we want to have like a very we're probably just going to end up with 5 paragraph max. I know it sounds crazy, but 5 paragraph max. We want to have like a very clear introduction paragraph, depending on how many words that we can have. But sometimes it can be long because again, introduction paragraph is kind of like complex. There are so many information in there that I'm going to share with you in a second. And then we're going to have a few body paragraphs. And then we get conclusion paragraph. 5, 6 paragraph max, and then we're good to go. Okay, not too many paragraphs. Okay. That being said, what should you start with in the introduction paragraph? We want to have a theme. If at this point you kind of like, okay, now I know that I'm not going to write about my name, my college, my competition, I won this award or what have you, what should I actually start writing, right? Let's create a theme or let's create a topic. That is actually, in fact, something that I look into when I first time read your essay. You're giving me the first draft. I'm going to read it really quickly. I'm not going to pay attention to every single sentence. I am going to do that later on, but I'm going to read like just real quick. And then that's what I'm trying to look for, the theme or the topic. So sometimes after I'm done reading your first draft, I'm going to kind of like task myself with you. So let me know if this is right, but you are going to do this and that. And then sometimes my advice is, oh, is that really how you actually, understand from my essay? And then when it's actually not, then we have a problem. So that means I don't understand, right? But then oftentimes also my advice is, yeah, that's kind of like what I want to, getting into in the essay. So then that's good. At least we have the theme or the topic. We want to focus on that topic, right? So let's say you want to study, I don't know, LLM in human rights, kind of like my favorite topic, right? What is the topic or what is the theme? Then, well, ask yourself, why do you want to be a lawyer specifically in the human rights? And what is that specific human rights that you want to covered on in Indonesia? And this is what I love about having young professionals such as yourself wanting to study in the US, because you guys already know that. You guys already know what you want to do. It's just that oftentimes the majority of us like are not thinking about that we're supposed to put it in the essay. But yes, we want to put it in the essay. And so start kind of like brainstorm yourself if you want to do that before we brainstorm it together. Kind of like, give all the information about like what is it that you want to do, right? Having a theme and having a topic. So then let's say you want to kind of like, okay, let's say we want to kind of like fix the climate change in Indonesia, specifically in a certain area or whatever, right? Focus on that topic for the rest of the essay. We don't want to, for whatever reason, you have like one small paragraph saying that, hey, I had an experience teaching English, because you want to kind of like show off yourself. No, that has something to do with you fixing the climate change, right? Once you have the theme or the topic, we are going to stay with that topic from the beginning until the end. Okay, and then you can basically, like, from the first session that we have, when I read your draft, you can actually see it from my gesture. If I'm like smiling or if I'm like nodding, that means I kind of like give it like kind of like a go, or maybe kind of like I'm doing this, meaning that I hate to break the news that because I'm going to give you like the big X. So a lot of things happen like from that one first draft alone. In fact, we can actually work on the first session, the first paragraph, for so many sessions. Okay. Another simple question is, if you're kind of like not sure what topic or theme that you should actually talk about, you can kind of like ask these questions, like simple questions, like, and this is the questions that I'm probably going to ask you anyway. Why are you pursuing master's degree in the US? Right? What is it that you're trying to do? Or you can ask yourself, who am I trying to help? What am I trying to help? Oh, I'm trying to help the climate change in Indonesia. What is my ending goals? I think this is also something that you can kind of like, have a mental note. What is my ending goals? That's kind of like the whole spectrum of what statement of purpose actually is, right? And again, like I said earlier, oftentimes it's not actually, what you have in your mind, it's actually not actually being written in the essay. And that's what I'm here for, to guide you on that. Okay. So intro paragraph is actually very tricky, guys. I said it just now that probably we're going to have like a session that is not probably just like 1 or 2 session. In fact, I have like a number of advisees where we are already in revision number 13. Can you believe it? And we are still in the introduction paragraph. That's because I'm that very particular in the introduction paragraph, because I don't want the admissions committee to actually stop reading. Okay. So what is in the introduction paragraph is a lot of things, but then at the same time, you don't want to overwhelm them. We don't want to overwhelm the reader. And remember, who's the reader? Is the admissions committee. But then we can assume that they don't know anything about Indonesia, and that's what we want to have actually in the introduction paragraph. We want to kind of like, if Indonesia is kind of like the spectrum of what you want to kind of like focus on when you're done with your program, then we want to kind of like give an intro about the country, or maybe you are watching the session and you're not from Indonesia, about your country, right? If that's kind of like what you want to focus on, what is actually really going on, right? Why do you want to do it, and why do you have to do it now? So I think the key word here is the urgency of why do you want to do certain things, and then why do you believe that you have to do it through master's degree first. Okay, we're not going to talk about like why are you doing, like why are you picking this campus. That's like for in the body paragraph. You don't want to tell that in the introduction paragraph. It's unnecessary, I feel like. So it's the introduction paragraph is basically a mixture of a bit of everything. But then, like I said earlier, we don't want to overwhelm the reader. What we want actually the introduction paragraph is to actually wow them. We want to wow them enough to the point where, whoa, what is this? What is going on here? I want to keep reading. So think about like an introduction paragraph as if like you're writing, like as if you're giving the reader some kind of like a synopsis of like a book, right? So yeah, you can do the way I look at it, and then it's always changing actually from year to year. And like I said earlier, I'm always learning. This is not like my final recipe, but now I really do into starting the essay by giving a glimpse about Indonesia, because I think, not I think, I know that this country is just like amazing on so many level, like geographically speaking, and just like the country in general is just like it's amazing. A lot of great information that we can actually introduce the reader to. So things like, my advisees who are into like science, or like earth science or oil and gas or what have you, they like to kind of like throw words like, Indonesia, a country of like, like a ring of fire, or maybe, Indonesian, talking about like the Indonesian archipelago, or maybe Indonesia, has the highest whatever, or like the worst, the lowest in whatever. The fact that not a lot of actually people out there know that we are, like the fourth most populous country in the world, or the fact that we have like the largest Muslim country in the world, but then at the same time we are not a Muslim country. So there are a lot of great information that we can begin, like we can start with, and think about that. That is kind of like similar to what you want to do. Okay, but then remember, we are not writing an academic paper. I think this is another thing that you probably want to kind of like write down. This is oftentimes what kind of like make the whole sessions kind of longer before we can move on to body paragraphs, because I want my advisees to actually end up with a non-formal tone, at least in the introduction paragraph. This is what makes introduction paragraph is really hard, guys, because I'm going to push you so much in writing something that is so not like an academic paper, especially if you want to do programs like MBA, or programs like something that is bold, like where you really have to kind of like argue, like when you want to do like human rights. A lot of my advisors who want to study LLM usually do this as well. We do not want to write an academic paper in the first paragraph. You want to sound very non-formal, yet exciting, throw out interesting facts, and then in the body paragraphs, we then can kind of like talk a bit serious. But at least in the introduction paragraph, we're not going to do that. I want a story. A statement of purpose is actually a story. It's not simply just like an essay. And when it comes to an essay, it's kind of like an academic paper, and we don't want that. Okay. I want a story, and I'm actually very particular in the story that I'm looking for. And that's, the recipe that I have here. I don't want to do any general or too general or obvious statement. Basically, just say whatever it is that you want to say, but then remember, don't give general statements. Okay. And then usually after we kind of like give a glimpse about what Indonesia kind of like looks like or what Indonesia is, there are some options that you can do after that, depending on the program. But a lot of my advisees nowadays, we kind of like focus on kind of like giving the history of the topic that we want to focus on. I don't really remember. I can't really think on top of my head what would be the example of my advisees that I'm currently working with. But maybe later on during the Q&A, the idea will come up. But sometimes we kind of like talk a little bit about the history, like, oh, Indonesia has been doing this. Also, for example, like my advisor who wants to kind of like fix the traffic problem in Jakarta. So then I said, hey, I think it would be really interesting if you kind of like give a history of it, like how long has Indonesia or how long has Jakarta has been having this problem since, right? So I think that would be also like really interesting, and then kind of like give also an idea that so why are you doing it now? Why it has to be now? So remember when I said the urgency kind of like also the keyword that you can think that you can also remember when you write the introduction paragraph. Give me an information like is the government aware of this problem, or if it's something that has nothing to do with the government, so who's supposed to pay attention to this problem, right? But then oftentimes usually my advisors are basically kind of like, oh, this is like, yeah, this is definitely something that the government of Indonesia have to do something about it, right? So then give an information about that, like, oh yeah, currently it's part of our current administration, like our president's agenda. It's in our president, Indonesia's president agenda on going this on reaching this goal or what have you, right? And then you tell me, okay, so then what's up, like why, if it's in their agenda, so then like why can't they just do it? And then you start to see kind of like a missing link in there, right? Like, oh, and that's something that I will discuss with you. Why do you have to do it now? Like, why can't you just do it now without master's degree? Oh no, yeah, no, of course I can't. I have to do master's degree because, well, in Indonesia we are still lack on da 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 da. Whatever it is, there must be some kind of like a missing link in there, right? But then at the same time, it doesn't always have to be a problem. It doesn't have to be a missing link. It can also be something like, for example, I have an advisee who wants to kind of like support the agenda or support that something that the government has already been doing to make it even better, then let's do it, right? Let's do it. Let's give some explanation. Let's give a story out of it. Okay. Again, like I said, the introduction paragraph is kind of like very complex. We want and another reason and another way, like when I try to read this introduction paragraph as the admissions kind of a point of view, the way I look at it on how you can actually make me keep reading and wanting to actually read the whole, like the next paragraph, is basically by wow me, by giving the kind of like up and down kind of like tone or story in that introduction paragraph alone. So what do I mean by that? So wow them by kind of like um, up and down, as in we give a really great explanation description about Indonesia, and then we're dropping the mic by saying things like, but Indonesia is still kind of like lacking in this and that. And then we're going up again by kind of like, but on top of that, we actually have the potential, So kind of like play around with like the tone of, to kind of like, and the way I look at it, that's kind of like, make me curious enough. I think not just like wow me enough, but make me curious enough to actually wanting to read the next session. So like why I keep mentioning about Indonesia, because again, like there are so many like bizarre facts about Indonesia that I actually learned from my advisees, and so I don't see why is this different case with you guys who are watching the session, right? So start thinking about like some unusual facts about Indonesia, about the situation. Okay. And another thing that maybe you kind of like want to add in your note, if you're currently taking one, is adding the dramatic effect. And I think that this is my favorite, but then at the same time, this is the thing that a lot of my advisors kind of like find it really, really hard. What do I mean by adding dramatic effect? Remember when I said that in the introduction paragraph, we don't want to write like an academic paper. I don't want to read an introduction paragraph as if I'm reading some kind of like a headline news from like, online newspaper. And oftentimes my advisors end up with that. And then I said, no, we don't want that. We want to kind of like tone down a little bit. Give me something that is more interesting. Like sometimes or oftentimes the content is nice, but it's just too stiff. I don't like it. It's too formal. Again, at least in the introduction paragraph where I don't want you to do that. So adding the dramatic effects, like playing around with the kind of like transition words, like you're providing one fact and then you said another one with ironically Indonesia, da 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 da, or whatever that is, right? Think about it. It's gonna be your homework, by the way. So another thing is basically in the introduction paragraph, we want to be bold in the introduction paragraph. Why? Well then, so because we want to kind of like make the reader keep reading the whole thing. And also remember that this is an essay that is being read by, well, we can assume that it's being read by an American, right? So and they love something that is very bold, very like straightforward and what have you. Voice your arguments if you have one. And in fact, you can actually end the introduction paragraph with a question or questions, right? That's actually really interesting when my advice is able to do that. You can also do a comparison because remember, we're talking about you studying in the US. When you are able to do some kind of like a comparison, similarities or differences between the US and Indonesia, that would be amazing. And remember, the US is the third largest country, and Indonesia just comes next. Not a lot of people know that. Probably they don't know that. And so if you want to provide that information, that would be great. Okay. This is just kind of like a reminder. Remember that in the beginning that I said that the essay that we usually write is all about me, 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 me. At this point, I don't want you to have like an I word in there. I mean, yeah, at some point there may be like some I word in your essay, but if you already have your draft, start circling the I word in your introduction paragraph. I often do that, and then oftentimes I got a lot, and then that's like when I tell my advisees, do you see how many I? Because when you do that, it's kind of like you voicing your opinion, and we kind of like want to kind of like minimize that and just kind of like make it some kind of like a fact in general. Okay, so minimize using personal opinion basically, and then probably at this point you'll be like, wait, so when will I talk about myself? You're not going to talk about yourself because I know it's probably surprising for some of you, but when you are actually able to write some kind of like a plan. So think of this essay some kind of like your plan, right? On what you're going to do. You provide the information on what is actually really going on. And this is why I want to do it and why it has to be now and why it has to be your campus, your program. And then your conclusion will be like, you're going to, you're kind of like your next few, the next few things that you're going to do after you're done. So think of your essays kind of like your plan. And if you are able to tell that plan without actually putting yourself like, I'm going to do it, if you're able to tell that plan without you saying that I'm going to do it, that means you already have like a successful essay. You are pretty much done creating an essay that no other people can write. And trust me, I've been doing this for like the last 4 or 5 years, and I have not met any single, like, I have not met two similar stories from my advisees. The field or the topic might be the same. So, for example, like, a couple of years ago, Industry 4.0, Indonesia 4.0 is kind of like a thing. So, a lot of my advisees raised that point, but there were no two advisees that are actually writing exactly the same plan. It's always different, and I don't know how that happens. And we're talking about like hundreds of essays that I have read by now, And so you don't have to be afraid about, but what if like my friend is going to say the same? No, you're not going to say the same thing. Trust me. Just as long as you know exactly what you want to do, and I'm pretty sure you already know what you want to do, we're good to go. Okay. Let's see. Pina, how about personal approach? So in my last couple of months, so far I've been talking about like having like a personal approach in the introduction paragraph. Personal approach means that you're kind of like telling a little bit about your personal stories. At this point, I would say probably we can skip it because oftentimes, although it's possible, but oftentimes, if not all the time, I always see that my advisees are better off with using a non-personal approach unless you believe that you have a very unusual personal experience. What is that? I mean, I don't know. That's something that we can talk about. Okay, when we do the one-on-one session. But for now, just kind of like for the sake of time, which I kind of like have to stop talking, but I still have like a little bit more here, so maybe five more minutes. But yeah, so for now, just focus on the kind of like what is it that you want to do exactly. Okay. So Fina, again, like what is actually in the body paragraph? So that's kind of like the whole spectrum of like what is in the introduction paragraph. Probably it's just kind of like so very complex in the introduction paragraph alone that's kind of like the big, like topic that I'm talking tonight. Because it is actually really hard. And then once we basically kind of like, I don't want to say that once I give you the green light, because it seems like you have to do it like exactly my way, although kind of like my way in a way. But basically, as long like usually after I'm pretty much like very like loving your introduction paragraph, then we can move on to body paragraphs. And then remember, I know that I have to stop talking right now, but then and then you're thinking, what? Now you're talking about body paragraphs? When are you going to stop talking? I'm going to stop talking in 5 minutes. But what I'm trying to tell you, remember when I said that we're not going to produce like 20 paragraphs. We're going to produce probably like a maximum of like 5 to 6 paragraphs. Introduction paragraph is just going to be very, 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 very hard. But then again, once we are done, because there are so many information in the introduction paragraph, when we go to body paragraph, it's just going to be very flawless. Like I'm telling you guys, it's just going very easy for you to do the rest. But basically in the body paragraphs is, again, depending on how many words, but basically you are going to, if you feel like you have to continue talking from whatever it is from the introduction paragraph, so maybe you kind of like want to continue giving more data or more reasoning or more condition on why Indonesia is like this or that, or the country where you're from, then we do that in the body paragraph, right? Keep providing the information, and then don't worry, at this point we don't have to sound like non-formal. We can sound formal if you want. So then you keep providing the information, and then you're going to hit the next paragraph before the conclusion, where you are basically pretty much saying something like, this is why I'm choosing your program, but you're not saying it exactly like that, but basically kind of like saying the reader, okay, this particular paragraph that I'm going to tell you is basically why, after I present to you what is actually really going on in my country, why I'm doing it, why it has to be now, where's the government in this, I need and I believe that I can only achieve this goal by entering your program because X, X, X. And that X, X, X is going to be in one particular paragraph that you do not want to underestimate. This is kind of like somewhat challenging, but then if you believe that you already do your research on that particular program and you already know in the back of your hand that this program is like the best, then that's going to be very easy for you to kind of like convince them. And again, I don't do easy. I don't do things like, oh, I choose your program is because you are ranked number whatever, or because you're located in the Manhattan or whatever. No, that's so boring. A lot of applicants out there are going to say the same thing. And by now you understand that I don't want you to write something that other people can write, but I want you to write something like, there's this course or there's this professor that if you take that class, what's going to happen when you implement that and then connect that to the problem that you have in your previous paragraph? Is it hard? Well, it is hard. But then what I mean by you have to do your research on the program, because that particular paragraph is like very important, because that's like when we convince the admissions committee that you really know everything and you are just very certain that this is the right program for you. And once you're done with that one particular paragraph, what happens next? We are done. We have, well, not done. We have the conclusion paragraph. But the conclusion paragraph, well, sometimes it can be, some people can find it kind of like challenging as well. But basically, in the conclusion paragraph is when you are going to sound very, very ambitious. And I want you to sound very ambitious, even though you're not like planning to be that ambitious. I'm going to let you do that anyway. But basically, in the conclusion paragraph is when you are going to kind of like wrap things up on, okay, so after you're done with your masters, what are the first few things that you're going to do? And then close it with something big, like how is this grand plan of you of your plan going to impact either for Indonesia or for certain community or even for other countries, right? So that's how ambitious I would want you to go. Okay, so I'm going to close this session by saying that probably at this point you're going to be kind of like overwhelmed with the whole, oh my god, like I don't know what should I write for the whole thing. I don't know if I can do it. But again, like guys, like that's what I'm here for. We're going to guide you. Santika and I are going to guide you. The way I do it, I'm going to kind of like do two-part of session. So the first part is going to be the introduction and the body paragraph. So then I'm not going to bother reading the paragraph about the universities and the conclusion. So let's focus first on the introduction and the body paragraphs. Once we're kind of like, oh my God, yes, I love it. You love it as well. Then let's do the second part, the last part, that is about the universities and the conclusion. Okay? All right, 8:06. I'm just going to close it with the summary of like what I've been talking about tonight, and then we're going to open up the Q&A. And I see that the chat here is just kind of like keep popping up, and I'm very excited. It means that there are some things going on here with you and Santika, and I love it. So yeah, summary. Essay, by now, you understand that it's not a CV approach, it's not a biography. We are going to write a one-of-a-kind essay, because when we can do that, why should we write an essay that other people who already start their essay for 2022 term, and they already started like this past January, February.
Hi everyone. So I think we are having some technical issues, and I'm here to kind of like talk to you guys before we have Fina again. Okay? And let's see. We have some questions popping in. So if you guys have any questions before we have Fina back with us again, if you're watching us from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram Live, and you have questions, don't worry. We don't only take questions from Zoom chat box. We also receive questions from any other platform. So you can just send your question in the comment box, and our team will give it to us. Okay? And yeah, so I'm waiting for more questions to come in. And Fina is back here in the chat box. So let us know, Fina, if you're ready to turn on your video again and your audio again, and we'll be happy to have you back. But for now, I am going to, show you guys some of the questions that we already have, and Fina and I will talk about. And we have 3 questions, and these are from Arif Ramadan in Zoom. Do you open consultation for essay for MBA as well? Some of the questions based essay are not general one like the statement of purpose, but it's more like of personal questions. So I actually already answered Arif in the chat box that we have plenty of MBA advices, but if you're talking about questions that are like short response, not the essay, the longer response or the only essay that has been asking for the MBA program, then we can try. You can always give us the draft, and we basically just need the prompt or the questions that's given on the official website of the US University website for your application for your program. Just copy paste that prompt or question on top of your draft and then send it to Fina or me, and we are good to go for an essay review. Okay. Um, for MBA, the questions is a bit different in terms of like the types of things that they will ask for. So in the past, I had an advisee came to me for the MBA application, and the question is very, very personal. It's like, what is the most important thing to you, for you? And that is very personal, and that's not like the general questions for statement of purpose, which is like, what are your personal or academic and professional goals, and how this program can help you achieve those goals. Those are quite different if you realize, and so we can approach it in a different way. We definitely want to try answering questions, especially in the MBA program, even if they sounded really, really personal. We want to try to um, not giving them and not giving them the very general answer. So if you realize like what's the most important thing to you, if you say things like education, that's probably general as well. Family, that's also probably very general. So you probably want to think of something more detailed or unique for your story, or your what you can connect to your story from your personal aspect. Okay. And okay, I'm seeing Fina in the chat
Can you
box
hear me,
here.
Cynthia?
And oh, hi Fina, you're back.
I'm back.
I haven't be
Sorry for
okay, I
a
can see you
short
again. Okay,
technical
such a relief.
difficulty.
Hello.
So yeah, I'm
Yeah, no
loving some
worries.
of these questions that we're having.
Mm-hmm,
So what have
mm-hmm.
you been talking about during my presentation?
Yeah, so we have been talking about MBA, because the question is a bit very unique, right, Pina? And like what I said, like even if the question is very personal, like what's the most important thing for you, for example, you don't want to give a very, very general answer, like maybe education or money, which is too general, right? You want to go into more detail or depth of tailoring it to very specific of your experience and maybe your personality or your profile, or the program that you want to do. So you don't want to give them like a general question, even though they only ask for like what, 200 words. You cannot give them anything that's too general or too you can just talk to anyone and they can have that answer. You don't want to do that. Like what Fina said, you want to write the only essay that only you can write, okay?
Yeah,
Even
and
though it's a
and
short essay. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I couldn't really hear the first part during when I have the small technical difficulties, but I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
if you say this also, but looking at Arif's question, Arif, if you're still
Mm-hmm.
watching this session, um yeah, I mean, I read a lot of MBA questions, and yes, some of them, if not all of them, actually kind of like questions based essays. So they have like a number of like questions, and then they want you to kind of like write it in, yeah, like 250 words, or maybe
Yep.
maybe even less. But actually, yeah, basically you have to write like separate. But actually, if you combine all those, um a lot of us actually not realizing it, but I started to realize that when you combine all those into like just kind of like combine
Just
those
like
answers,
one
it
whole
will become,
piece.
yes,
Yes.
it will become one
Yeah,
piece, almost like a statement of purpose. So I think Santika, you
exactly.
mentioned that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you
Mm-hmm.
definitely can also get some key takeaways from what I have shared with you tonight. So
Yes, definitely. Definitely, Fina. It was really, really in-depth explanation on what you can start doing with your essay, statement of purpose or personal essay and not motivation letter, guys. It's different, okay? I've actually mentioned that in the chat box, fearing that a lot of people thinking that, those are the same thing, which they are not. We don't really talk about it tonight, but if we have any questions on that, we will be glad to, help you answer those questions. But yeah, mind you that if the word limit is very, very little, like 200 to 300 words for one question, one specific question, they usually have more than one question. So usually it's probably three questions, each no more than 300 words. So if you combine them, those are like 900 words and probably 1.5 or 2 pages. And that happened to my advisees who wants to apply to public administration or something. And you just want to make sure, before I forget, you want to make sure that you don't put the same thing or topic or talking points or storyline, the same storyline, you repeat it on different questions. So you don't want to talk about why you choose this university in the first prompt, and then you also talk about it on the third question. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure you don't repeat any of those points. Okay. All right. We can move on to the next question, which is, I think, very interesting. This is from your advisee.
Is it just me or the audience are kind of like quiet? I asked questions, but no one answered. I feel sad.
So I think there's a bit like miscommunication here. Probably it's because when you were disconnected, I think they thought that the event is finished, and so some of them, I think they think that the events has been concluded. So a few of them actually left, but I took over, and the rest of the audience are still here, and I think we just need to talk about something really interesting for them. And I think this is from
But then
your
I remember,
advices,
Santika. But then I remember at the same time, like when because I'm currently in America. In fact, I'm actually on the stage where I usually, before the pandemic, I always like, sitting here in front of, like audience in person. But then I remember, like, also, after I'm done with my presentation, and then I was like, okay, questions, guys. And then they said, no one asked me questions. And I said, oh, okay, so that means my presentation is really that good.
Very,
that
very
don't have
clear.
any questions. So I'm going to take it,
Exactly.
And
yeah, and that's true. Like those audience who just left before the Q&A, I think they just have no questions. They just, okay, this is clear. I have Fina's email already and Santika's email already probably, so I'll just contact them directly. And we look forward to that wherever you're watching from. Okay. Yeah. And this is a good question from Fina's good advisee from City here. I know some people might get there first. So it's a long question, but the main point here is, if you write about your interest with the subject that you want to apply for and your life experiences that you have encountered, is it a good thing to include in your essay?
Or how do you really give the personal touch of the autobiography? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. To be completely honest with you, because I create this like one specific recipe for a reason, and oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, I know that in my recipe, I don't actually really give a part anywhere in the essay where you are going to look back on what you have done, because I feel that it should just be in the resume, or it just should be in the transcript. However, I totally also understand that there are some programs that they are specifically asking that question, like, provide information about like what have you done in the past that is kind of like related to what you want to do. Then that being the case, then we can do that, and probably we have to do that since the university literally asked that in the prompt. But then sometimes my advisees would kind of like go long on that part, which the way I look at it, we don't have to go that deep, but basically just kind of like very brief, mentioning what it is that you want to kind of like bring up in the essay that is relatable, be it, what Siti said here, is it like subject that you had done when you were an undergrad, or like life experience or working experience. And so just kind of like apa ya, what do you call it? Kind of like diselipin gitu loh. Just kind of like put
Yes.
it just a little bit blend it. The way I look at it, blend it with like the whole other story that we
Mhm.
supposed to actually tell in the essay based on my recipes,
Yeah.
if I can say that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Fina. And what I also told City in the chat box was that you need to be detailed and probably show urgency. You don't want to tell them, hey, I studied this and it's interesting, and so here I am. I'm applying for the master or the PhD. I mean, that's just the surface, right? You just need to go very deeply. Maybe when you learn that there's something that making you driven to study deeper. You probably have a greater purpose or goals that you want to reach, and that's how you, like Fina said, blend everything together from what you already have in the past and where you want to be heading, with this kind of program. So that's why the prompt makes sense. Like, what's your goals, and how this program can help you achieve those are like the very generic question for or prompt for graduate schools in the States. Okay, I hope that helps. And Tian Mai is actually from Vietnam. We have an audience from out of
Thank you so
Indonesia.
much.
Woo!
Thank you so much for
Yeah, and
watching this session. And there is
yeah, and
Education
this is
USA in Vietnam. I'm pretty sure you know.
exactly, yeah, and I'm about to refer her just in a minute in the chat box. But then this is not her first time coming to our event. I remember I see her name in our other events in the past. And thank you so much for making the time from far, far away. And so her question is, do we need a turning point in the essay? If so, could you tell me how to demonstrate it? So actually tell Sipi that maybe you can do like a turning point or something like that, like where you decide that you really need this program or higher degree. And so Tian might have a follow-up question on that, like how do you make like a turning point, or when you click, okay, this is when I decide I need this program or like higher degree. What do you think, Fina?
No, I completely agree with you. Also, another thing that we can think of a turning point, and I think you actually brought up like a really good term, turning point. I think that's something that I always like look forward to when I present this, and I just kind of like lost, like I don't know what to say, but it's actually a turning point. The turning point, the way I look at it in the essay, is actually at the end of your introduction paragraph, or at least that's kind of like the turning point to the reader, whether or not they want to keep reading or just kind of like skip it. Um, so basically, we can actually have a turning point at the end of your introduction paragraph. And how to demonstrate it. The way I look at it, I think I kind of like touch upon a little bit during me talking. Basically, you can there are some ways that you can do it. You can kind of like if the topic that you want to do is kind of like very argumentative, so meaning that so let's say we want to use like, you want to help the government at the end of the day, but then what they are currently doing is still not enough. So that's why you kind of like want to challenge them in the beginning, although at the end you are helping them. We are doing this together. And so you can kind of like sound very argumentative at the end of your introduction paragraph and then you can make it into questions at the end
Yeah.
of your introduction paragraph. I think the way I look at it, the reader will be like, whoa, there's something
Yeah.
going on here. And then I want to read the
Mhm.
rest. That's
Mhm.
how I look at,
Mhm.
like, do I want to read the next paragraph? Of course, I'm curious. So that's kind of like, the way I look at it when it comes to, having a turning point. So
Cool. All right, Fina. So before we go to, kind of like the last question from other platform, we actually have a one very interesting question that I remember in the chat box
yeah.
here. It's not on the sheet. What about if I focus on smaller perspective, like my working institution, um, which is the government. So like what you have just said, because I was talking to City on go into deeper topics and details and story, and with Tian Mai asking about the turning point, and Panji here asked, what about if it's a small perspective, it's just from where I'm working, which is the government. Well, I tell Panji that we have a lot of advisee who is working in the government and is trying to apply for or already got LPDP awardee, which one of kind of like the criteria is that you kind of want to do something for the country, right? And it makes more sense if you're working in the government because you already know, okay, this is going on, this can be improved, this is just so wrong, or this is right but this can be improved, or things like that. So yes, sometimes the small perspective, if you can elaborate it into something significant, and that's what we are looking for, kind of, right, Fina?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is
Okay, so
another
yeah, so
slide.
if I can add a little bit to
Yeah,
that,
please.
I know that I've been talking about like Indonesia, like as if it's like a big plan. And the reason why
Mhm.
I'm saying that is just because like, well, I'm in Indonesia and I love Indonesia, and I just feel like a lot of my advice is doing things for the whole country, and I think it's just like
Great.
amazing. But of course, not all of my advices are having like this plan at the end of the day to kind of like do something for the country. It can be just kind of like small community, or like when I said earlier, like an example of my advice is wanting to fix the traffic problem starting in Jakarta. That's like small spectrum, right?
Mm.
So yeah, no, it doesn't have to be like like super big, but even if it's just kind of like like in a government entity, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
You definitely want to kind of like join our session in next month. I'm going to invite one of my advisees, successful
Successful
advisee,
advising. Yeah.
where yeah, so he's going to do Master of Public Administration at Columbia University, and then I want to highlight his profile as someone who is working inside the government. And because I had so much fun working on the essay together with him, because I think I remember, I think that's him. But he was like, "Are you sure that I can talk like this? I feel like I'm talking bad about my employee." And I'm like,
Country.
no. I know that it sounds like very kind of what, like you're challenging, but then at the end we want to do something for them, right? So that's totally okay. And so yeah, you definitely kind of like want to join that session. um
Yes.
Probably we can kind of like cover the last question that just came in. Is better
Yes, please.
your advisee, Santika?
Battery is
Or my
has been with us, our event, for so
okay,
many
sounds
times
familiar,
that,
Betari. Good.
yeah,
But
her
thank you for
name
the
sounded
question.
really familiar. Yeah.
Is it copied yet? Okay, it's not copied yet, but it's okay. We can just read it.
Yeah. We
You
can just read it
advise,
from the chat box.
yeah, you advised earlier that starting essay early would be better. The way I look at
Mm-hmm.
it is that writing essay is like trying to be more aware of ourselves completely.
Yep.
Just curious if any of your advisees have ever changed their mind regarding university or major in the middle of writing their essay. Oh, I love this question.
Oh,
Like the more
yes.
they learn about themselves, they realize that other major university might suit them better than the one they have pursued. Oh, I love this question. I think this is
Okay.
like going
How
to be a
many times,
perfect
Dina?
that is, I think this is
Yeah, I
going to be a
love this.
perfect ending question. But something I would love to hear if you have that experience as well. But yeah,
I
and
okay,
yeah, let me start with you.
on top of my head, I had at least three of them. Because when I was reading the essay and discussing it with him or her, and I asked this question like, so are you sure this is the only program that can give this things that you say you want to get? Are you sure? And he or she goes like, I'm not that sure. And then so I said, okay, you go ahead and do your research, because this is not strong enough if you say, okay, I'm going to study this policy because you have this course, and that's it. Like, you don't feel the need or certain things that after you study that course, what you can be capable of. You don't have that vision of yourself in the future. And that's probably why you haven't been comparing a lot of things out there that's available for you. So I said, go ahead and try to research again. And she come back to me with a different university, with a different program name, but it's still the same field sometimes. A lot. There's one time he was applying for MBA or finance or something. And then when the essay is just very, very general, I said, we need something more detailed. There's something that you can tell, in order to show them that you have this very good experience, and where you want to heading, where you want to, head in the future. And because he cannot make the connection of, what he had in experience and the education background and everything. It's just, it's the bridge is just not connecting. So then I said, you need to think about this, if this is really really what you want. And so he go for another research spree and then come back to me, Santika, I think I'm going to apply for the MBA instead of the finance. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it happened a few times, probably 4 times by
Mm-hmm.
now,
Mm-hmm.
with different advices, of course. So yeah,
Yeah.
that
I,
happens,
I,
and
yeah,
it's cool.
I don't, yeah, for me, like, I don't remember, like, I can't literally say, like, how many exactly, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's not, like, happened often,
Yep.
but then if it happened, yeah, oftentimes it's on people who wants to do MBA. The reason is because MBA is, basically, I love having advisees coming in and they said they want to do MBA, but then
Mhm.
I like to challenge them so much, as in, like, why MBA? And are you aware that MBA is basically a major that like a lot of people want to do MBA?
Exactly.
And at the same time, I want to push you to actually apply for MBA from highly selective universities. But then at the same time, being realistically speaking, getting into those highly selective MBA programs are actually really, really hard, right? So then I'm actually very super particular when it comes to MBA applicants, to the point where a lot of people,
Yes.
I tell them that, look, I think if I can be honest, you are better off with continue doing whatever it is that you want to do. And there are actually a lot in the US. For example, I know that people who wants to do has an engineering background for undergrad, and then they want to do MBA, but then looking at their profile, I kind of like see that they're not MBA enough. But then, well, in the US, there is an engineering management
Yep.
that's pretty similar to MBA in a way. Well, you
Mm-hmm.
can actually still do something about engineering. And so a lot of
Yep.
my advice is kind of like, like shift their
Shifted.
major. Um,
Agree.
other times is more on, like, when I challenge them during the essay session, because remember when I said that you need to be able, when on that particular paragraph, when we
Mm-hmm.
are talking about that particular university, it's important to be able for you to connect what the university has and how it's going to be impactful to what you want to do for
Yep.
the country. And then there are just few, but there were some of my advisors who weren't able to kind of like elaborate on that, and then they at the same time they realized that, and then I forgot, maybe I think either they changed major or they just changed the university. But yeah, no, that's actually a really interesting question. That
Exactly.
happened, but not that often, because, and this is what I love about you guys. I just feel like, right, Santika, like, I just feel that you guys are just so on point. Like, you come to see me or Santika, and then you just know already what you want to do. This is the major that I wanted to go to. This is the university that I'm aiming to. I just don't know how to write the essay. And then when
Exactly.
and we got advisees that are like that. The majority of you guys are like that, and I love it. I love it because it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
easier for us to just kind of like, let's dive into this essay game, right?
Yes.
And so yeah, I I don't know, Santika, is there anything that you want to kind of like add before we kind of like end this session? Do you mind pull up the one slide that I have on
Sure.
uh yeah. I keep
So I'm gonna
forgetting to
pull it.
put, yeah. And I keep forgetting to
I'm gonna.
put your part in that. You just still on my
Oh, that's
screen.
fine.
But I'm gonna like
So
say it probably.
what I'm gonna do is from another laptop here, which is the backup. I'm gonna share screen. So
This is just kind of like an information, guys.
okay.
If
Here you
you,
go.
yeah, and then just go to the next. Yeah, we skip that. We don't have time to. This is kind of like an example of like introduction paragraph that I wish I did have the time to talk about it. But
Oh, that's it.
no.
Which
Can we
slide you
go
want me
to
to show?
the last two slides? Sorry,
Okay,
the last two slides.
noted. And
The
here you go.
Education as America advisor. Yeah, before that
Here
one.
you go.
Yeah, there you go. So again, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for joining the session. I really appreciate you attending the session. If you have any feedback, I know that Education USA America advisors are ready to review and give feedback of your essays. But I would also love to receive feedbacks. If you feel that the session is informative, or you have some other ways, or you prefer some other ways of me or Santika presenting this, please do let us know. We are doing this for you. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you for sure. But yeah, again, we assist you on the structure of the essay. I hope you actually get that by now. We don't do the grammar. I think I skipped this part, but we don't review scholarship essays or essay that are still in Bahasa Indonesian language. But so please give everything in English. My schedule is, since the pandemic, we are available every single day, 1 to 9, but we have different shifts, Santika and I. So Santika is actually doing 1 to 5, and then I do the rest. 5 to 9, and it seems like a lot of you guys prefer the evening, and I also prefer to read an essay because I love reading essays. So please keep it coming. So I'm available from 5 until 9. Obviously, I'm not available now, so I'm not available when there are events. You can send the draft to my email address by now for you guys who are attending the session. We don't do offline reviews, so just don't send the essay and expect me to just kind of like get back to you with the comments. But you can send it now. I'm going to save it on my inbox, and then we're going to review it together when you are ready to jump into Zoom. So we're just going to do session live in Zoom. All right. And again, thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Santika, in helping me during the chat. I want to say thank you, of course, for the Ed America team to be able to make this happen. I'm loving this back in Ed America. And so, yeah, I look forward to having you. Don't forget to check out our upcoming events next week. And have a good evening. And I'm going to give you back to our amazing e-guide, Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Kafina, and also Kasantika, for another amazing session this evening. So earlier on in the event, I asked you guys a social media question, and the question was, true or false, a statement of purpose should contain your motivation and capabilities, and also your connection to your chosen field of study. So is that fact true or false? That is actually true. The SOP, or Statement of Purpose, provides the admissions committee with a way of understanding more about you as an applicant on a deeper level. So our winner for this evening is from Facebook, so shout out to Swarlas Yusuf Tandi for answering correctly. For those of you who would like to participate in our social media quiz next time, you can tune in from the very beginning of the event, because that's when we'll be sharing our question. And also, I shared with you that Ad America is having a giveaway as part of our 10th anniversary celebration, and also celebrating the diversity between the US and Indonesia. We're inviting you guys to participate so you guys don't miss out on a chance to receive an iPad Pro. So how can you guys do that? You guys can go to the link below at atam.tv/mask2unmask for more information. Now, how can you develop an awesome idea at an awesome place like Ad America? It's really easy. You can just go to our website at www.adamerica.or.id, select Create a Program, and go to Collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed, and your event might be featured here soon. And while you guys are on our website, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter so you guys get updates sent straight to your inbox. Don't forget to follow us on our social media for fun content, event updates, and many more. Hope you have a good evening, and see you at the next Ad America TV event. Bye-bye, everybody.